A long journey. I started first of all professionally coaching at Manchester United. I was started there when I was 21, and I had 8 years working there, learning my trade. I then sort of transitioned out of academy football into working with first teams, and I had 2 years working League One, League Two, and it was a case of have gloves will travel. So I was working with Rochdale, did a bit with Stockport, Macclesfield, and just doing like a day or two a week with each of those clubs.
Yeah.
And then I was fortunate enough, 2008, I got the first team job at Queen's Park Rangers, which was a tumultuous time. If anybody ever gets to see the documentary, the 4-year plan,
Yeah.
you'll get to see just how crazy it can be at certain football clubs. And then from there, I decided after about 6.5, 7 years, I got the opportunity to go and work abroad. I had 3 years working out in the UAE with the top team out there, Al Ain FC. It was great. Took the family out there. Got the opportunity there to coach in the Asian Champions League, so against the best teams across Asia, and go to some really interesting countries you wouldn't usually get to, like the likes of Iran and Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and places that you're not exactly going to go on holiday to. And then after that, I had 9 months working with the Taiwanese national team. A friend of mine took the job there, and at that point, I thought it'd be great. It was something I hadn't done, working with a national team set up. So I had the joy of that. And then I came back to the UK, had 18 months at Manchester City, heading up their goalkeeping recruitment, from first team all the way down to under eights, looking after all those goalkeepers coming in and through. And then that brings me up to now. I've been in at Stoke City for the last year, working with the first team goalkeepers. So, I mean, that's a shortened version, but that's pretty much my career to date. I mean, academy, you're looking 100% on development.
Yeah.
So, the aim is just nurturing talent and bringing it through. And working with you've got your plan and understanding where the sort of targets you should be hitting at certain age groups, and making sure you get the right information into them and help them hit those targets.
Yeah.
Obviously, then within first team, your target is to win games. So where I'll have some development targets during the season, it's going to be a lot more immediate. So for instance, we've got Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday away. We played last night, so we'll be in. The lads have been off today. We'll be in Thursday, Friday, and all of the work's going to be about how we stop Sheffield Wednesday and how we beat them. So it's all very much immediate. Whereas obviously on the youth side, it could be a 5-6 year plan.
The goalkeeper position, for me, it's the hardest position in any football team, because if you make a mistake, usually it's a goal. And how do you manage as a goalkeeper coach those lows and the confidence levels of the goalkeepers?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that as a goalkeeper, you've got to understand that a mistake is part of your job. It's like a winger can have a bad 40 minutes in a game, and then they get a ball cross and score, and nobody's really worried about the mistakes that they've made, miss-hit crosses and passes. For a goalkeeper, you cannot afford to make a mistake. The biggest thing for me when I'm working with keepers is, I talk about understanding that mistakes will happen, but we try to keep a distance between them. So I use the analogy of, if you go past like an oil refinery or an engineering works, you see signs up there saying there's been so many days since the last incident or accident. And that's because they know it's so dangerous there is going to be an incident, but they pride themselves in the time between. And with goalkeepers, that's what you work on. I take a lot of the emotional sting out of stuff. So when we talk
Yeah.
about things, the emotion's out of it. There's no hot reflection in a game. So, for instance, last night, one of the goals, the goalkeeper wasn't great on. Now at half time,
Mhm.
I'll talk about very much the matter of fact and the details of it, so that it doesn't happen again. But I'll take that emotional sting out of it, because you've got to analyze things coldly, calmly, and take that sort of the fear factor, take out the emotion out of it. Being able to get the best out of your ability and your skill levels under pressure. So in my line of work, I look at, I've seen lots of goalkeepers over the year where, on a training field, they're fantastic. They've got high levels of skill, balance, creativity. But then when they go into the match scenario, they freeze, and they only get a small percentage out of their ability. So for me, that high level performance is getting the most out of your ability, in that match environment.
Yeah. And in terms of that goalkeeper, what do you think the key behaviours to enforce that are amongst any athlete, any goalkeeper, to make sure they hit that high performance?
Well, I think that the first thing is to practice as close to the match as possible. The situations, so that it's not a surprise when things happen in the game. Gone are the days where you'd just be jumping over hurdles and catching balls. I think things have moved on now, where it's more about recreating those match situations. When I first started out coaching, I would look at things where goalkeepers were able to do things in training, and then it wasn't transmitting into their match performance. And naively, as a young coach, I was saying, well, they couldn't transition between practice and matches. Whereas the reality was, what I was coaching wasn't close enough to the game. So you see lots of wonderful practices on YouTube where it requires a real mental leap from the goalkeeper to understand what they're working on and how that fits in the game.
Yeah.
So a big thing for me is I'll be working on snapshots of what's going to come up in upcoming games, and it's got to be relative. The movements, the problems, the decision making, decision making is the biggest one. Because you can practice anything in isolation, but then once you're under pressure and you've got multiple things happening, you've got chaos in front of you, you've got to be able to manage that chaos. And it's all well and good just coaching in isolation and then just expecting on match day that when there's another, a million things happening, that they're just going to get it right. So, to have that practice as close to the game is key for that. It's having everybody singing off the same song sheet, coming in together. Like with me, the culture I'll have with the goalkeepers is hard work, trust, and honesty within the group. And I mean, hard work goes without saying. But if I think about the culture that we've sort of instilled in our players since we've come in over the last 12 months, it's about that work ethic for each other, and helping each other, having a structure and belief in the dressing room, and the kind of behaviours that are on the field and off the field. So, how you behave in the dressing room, how you behave in the canteen, how you behave in the gym, everything there has got to be professional. You're on time, you're respectful of others, and you work together. So you can't have any renegades in that. I think as soon as you have people that go against the culture, and you have a counter culture happening, that's when you end up with splits in the dressing room and you end up with cliques. And it's important that once you bring that culture in, everybody sticks to it, no matter who they are, star player, young player coming into the team, and everybody abides by those rules. I think everybody, should have, or should have found opportunities to.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that certainly within our job that we've had to get used to is the lack of training time. Yeah. So, we've gone into this new season where we're playing every three days, and that means that so we played last night. The players have got a day off today, which is few and far between at the minute. Then we've got a 2-day lead into a game, and you learn how to really prioritise what you need, because if we had a Saturday to Saturday window of training, you'd have your Sunday off.
Yeah.
We'd have a steady day Monday, Tuesday a little bit higher workload. Then the players would get a Wednesday off usually. Thursday would be tactical, looking at the game, and then Friday would be a light session, probably looking at set plays and last little bits of tactics with the team shape. But when you microwave that down into 2 or 3 days,
yeah,
you've really, you've got to say, right, well, what do we need and what don't we need here?
Yeah.
So I definitely think that during this period, I've learned how to cut out what's just extra stuff that's not important.
Yeah. So set the priorities, really.
Yeah. And it's the same for the players. It's also getting them to understand, because professional sportsmen can be very superstitious, and they've got their needs, and they feel that if they don't do a certain thing on a certain day, or they get a certain, like some goalkeepers I'd have worked with, they'd be wanting a certain amount of catches. They need to get half volleys in. They need to do this, but if you haven't got the time to do all that, then you start to, you have to start to lose some of those superfluous, things. So it takes away a little bit of that, the sort of need for things.
Yeah.
Where actually, they're not needed to actually, to complete the task. I mean, it's interesting because in a couple of the roles that I've been in, we've had a picture of our elite goalkeeper, and particularly when I was working on the recruitment side of Manchester City, we had our picture of an elite goalkeeper. What the makeup of that goalkeeper was technically and tactically.
Yeah.
And I'd break it down into, we had what we called the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
And it was a very basic window, but we looked at it, split the goalkeeper up into protecting the goal, protecting the space, protecting the air, controlling play, changing play, and then we had the physical attributes, which were speed, agility, power and balance.
Yeah.
And then on the mental side, it was about control, confidence, competition, and we put all of these together and we graded them within different age groups and what those meant for each age groups.
Yeah.
But it's having those balance across there.
Yeah.
And I think, I go back to when I worked at Manchester United, we had the same thing, and we balanced. We looked at our elite model was Van der Sar.
Yeah.
So the elements that he had, and then for me, the thing that overrides all of those is the mental strength, the psychological side. Most proud of the amount of goalkeepers that I've worked with that have gone on to have good careers in the game. The main reason for me becoming a coach was, as I was a young goalkeeper coming through, I didn't have that goalkeeping coach mentor, certainly not on a regular basis, and so I wanted to give something back and help goalkeepers get what I hadn't got. So for me, you know, it's not about, listen, it's nice to win trophies. It's nice to, you know, get promotion here and reach finals and what have you. But for me, it's seeing young goalkeepers that I've worked with go on and have great careers.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, you know, I've helped them in some small way, you know, for over however long to reach those points. And I love it. Listen, I love watching football now, and I'll see goalkeepers that I've worked with playing, and it's, you know, and I'm in contact with a lot of them.
Yeah.
As you'll know, as a teacher, you stay a lot, you know, you stay in touch with a lot of your pupils in the past, and it's great to see them sort of spread their wings and fly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you with that. That's what I do. My job for is to develop people, make people better, and hopefully they go off and be successful in whatever they do.
I've got three.
Yeah.
I've got three role models, and they're as much mentors for me. So two coaches that I worked with at Manchester United, and that was Tony Coton, who was first team goalkeeping coach, and Rich Hartis, who was head of the academies. He's now first team goalkeeping coach at Manchester United. So those two were big figures in my life. You know, they really sort of guided me along the pathway of coaching, how to understand the real intricacies, the details, and like with TC, it was very much about understanding working with the elite level goalkeepers, and how to work with a certain egos, and you know there'll be certain goalkeepers. If you're working with a senior pro, it's not as easy to go straight in and say, right, you're not doing this right, you need to do that. You might have to go round the problem a little bit.
Yeah.
And he gave me certain techniques and coping strategies for that. With Rich Hartis, he really got me to learn to think on my feet.
Yeah.
But when I first started at Manchester United, I always am very keen on planning and organising. And for the first 2-3 months that I was working with him, he would come in and just take my coaching plan off me and just throw it away and say, no, I want you working on something else tonight. And I'd just have 5 minutes to think, oh my God, right, okay, I've got to come up with something. So those two are heavily, and then the other one will be Eric Steele, who's known as the guru in goalkeeping coaching terms. Steely's helped me, like, put me forward for jobs as I've come through as a young coach, and you know, most of the positions I've got, you know, he's put me forward for. And he's always at the end of a phone to sort of, you know, he was, you know, first team goalkeeping coach, Manchester United, Manchester City, Aston Villa, Derby, you name it. He's worked with England, so he's somebody that, you know, I aspire to having a career like that. Hard work. Honesty. And trust, both ways. You know, I think those are three foundations of the work. For me, it comes my non-negotiable for myself is empathy. As a coach, that's my number one thing, is that I have to understand the situation that they're in and understand how they want to be dealt with, coached, and then that leads to the trust. And from everybody, listen, the hard work and the honesty in there, you know, it's key. If you don't have that in the players that you're working with, you know, the rest don't matter. Believe in myself more. You know, belief. I think that's a big thing. I think that as a coach, as a player, I didn't have belief in myself until I was probably in my mid to late 20s. You know, and I would say for the young generation, you know, you've really got to just believe in yourself first. You're always going to have people who believe in you, push you on, but it's you that counts, your self-belief that counts. The main components I would have every single day. There will be an element of footwork and handling. So that's from me. My goalkeepers, when they come in the morning, though, before they even start with me, they'll go with the sports and conditioning lead, and he will take them through some pre-activation work, and it'll be goalkeeping specific. So it will be things working on things that are coming up in the session. So if it's a power session, if it's a fast movement session, he'll get them ready for that on the physical side. When they come out to me on the grass, we will, like I say, work on footwork and handling. Those patterns will be high repetition movements that are going to be key to the work that we're going to do in the session, and handling work that's going to be key to the session, whether it's shot stopping or cross taking. We'll then go into a number of different practices, and I'll split that up depending on the needs of the game that's coming up. So if, for instance, we know we're coming up against a team that we're going to get a lot of aerial pressure, then we'll work on crosses and patterns of shots from close in distance, and work through that. That will probably be a good 20-25 minutes. We'll always finish them with different types of distribution, short and longer, depending again on how we're going to play out as a team. And then the goalkeepers will go over and join the squad at that point, and I'll work in behind them as they're with the team. So it might be the manager or the assistant manager leading the session, whether it's a tactical session or a game-based session. And then I will link some of the things that we've been doing and some of the things that are going to come up in the match in that work while they're with the team.
How important is kind of distribution in the modern day, like kind of goalkeeper?
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, look, it always has been massive. I think over the last 10 or 15 years, it's become bigger. You're seeing goalkeepers now being used more as an outlet. You look at Manchester City with Ederson. I mean, his distribution and his quality on the ball, for me, is the best in the world. And you look at how important that is to the way that Manchester City play. So, I remember before I joined Manchester City, watching them against Spurs, and Spurs looked to play a high press, and Ederson alone was killing that press, and he was playing through lines into the midfield and taking out 4 and 5 players with a pass. So it is important, and we work a lot on it. From our point of view at Stoke, we look at building from the back. So we will start with playing out through the defence, but then we'll be looking at, if we come up against a team that's going to high press us, can we play the ball into the wide fullbacks, or are we going to go direct into the front players and play off there? But it's massive. Really just highlighting the things that you're going to be facing. So, I mean, the warm-up I'll do with our goalkeepers, they will have some general handling with the ball coming in at different heights. There'll be some predictable stuff and some unpredictable. So we'll work back from 6 yards, 12 yards, 18 yards with different types of strikes. They will then have their passing practice, again over different distances and different passes. We'll have an element then of cross-taking and some shot stopping, which is a lot less predictable. And it's just getting them ready, really. I mean, on any match day, obviously you're going to have the different weather conditions. So even just for that, to see, which way the wind's blowing when you're kicking it, when you're receiving a high ball and that. And the key there is not to do too much, so you're not going to get fatigued. But equally doing enough that when you go into the game, you feel that you're physically ready to perform.